when I was taken back by the signing. I just didn't like it. Almost honestly felt like a fake tweet.
I did the same thing.
Did you?
I was like, okay, is this like Shams?
Yeah.
Is this like
burner account? I'm like, why would you fake the Skal
Is the Shams with a Z or something? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Or I was looking back, I was like, okay, is this from today?
Right,
or is
that's
this
what
like
I thought. I go,
a 2013 tweet or something?
Retweeting a 4-year-old tweet.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, so we're improvising here.
On the phone.
On the phone instead. Sean, we love seeing your face.
Still the man, the myth, and the legend.
Yes.
I don't know about that. Now, huh?
Yeah, we got you. Loud and clear. You sound great, Sean.
Oh, thanks, pal. Yeah, I don't know what happened there. Some of those little technical glitches, but yeah, Chris coming up with the man, the myth, the legend was, I think it just set me up for failure right there.
Well, let's pick up where we were just talking, Sean. You had a chance to talk to Skal, and both Chris and I said the same thing, and it took us back when he's like, yeah, I think, Sean, you'd be surprised. I'm much more mature, from 3 years ago, and I didn't think of Skal in lacking maturity. That was one of my takeaways from that. If he thinks he's more mature, great, but I didn't think he was lacking maturity.
Yeah, I'm kind of right there with you. I was surprised that was a little bit of the role he took, and I think some of that is, kind of, rehashing some notes and things you remember about his time here in Sacramento, and obviously a first-round pick, and it's somebody that any first-round pick comes in and you want to learn a whole bunch about and talk to people that were around him and former coaches and just his upbringing. And I've done a lot of stories with him over the years. I mean, his upbringing in Haiti and surviving, that devastating earthquake as a child, and his ascension to basketball, which really kind of came to him at a later part in life than probably most do when they're, so heavily recruited and projected to be such a high pick. I mean, Jason, Chris, you both probably remember the fact that, he was there were a lot of people thought he'd go number 1 overall a year before the NBA draft that he was actually selected in. And then he had this monster drop off. And part of that was because he didn't play so much in Kentucky. They didn't play a specific role that I think a lot of people who scout the NBA would like to see from him, having attributes that people want to see in the NBA and turning him more into this shot blocking presence and rebounder. And I remember John Calipari talking about how him being a shot blocker and him being asked to do a certain role that was different from so many of the other things that his contemporaries would do and even teammates would do would hurt him. But because of the fact that he was filling the role of a shot blocker, kept him on the floor. And, Calipari kind of set him up for failure in a little bit and trying to compare him to somebody like Karl Anthony Towns. And it's like, no, Skal doesn't really have that monster in him that just goes out and goes after every rebound like Towns does, but he's a different player. He's a skilled player, but a different player. And I think so much of you were talking about when you talked about his maturity, I think it was maturity from a basketball standpoint in the sense that certainly there's things that he had to work on. There's a lot of stuff that look a little bit more mechanical rather than that fluidity or that instinctive play that he can make. And I think a lot of that was what he was talking about, but just kind of knowing his background a little bit, I think he had to grow up fast when he was young. And I think now being more comfortable in his own skin and his own body and looking around and being a competitive player, having moments that were bright spots as a Kings player, but then when he goes to another player and has a setback with an injury and then finds himself out of the NBA, was probably something that he didn't know how to react to. So yeah, I thought it was a really honest assessment of some of the things he was talking about, and it was a lot of fun to talk to him.
Sean, I have a 2-parter for you. Skal, Nerlens, and Nimi are all on training camp or non-guaranteed deals, and then the Kings also brought back Alex Len as well. Also signed Trey Lyles, who seems like a lot of his minutes might be coming at the 5 this year. First part of the question: Do you think that this training camp is essentially just going to be an open tryout for that third or second backup center spot? And then second, much like the 49ers bringing in 4 quarterbacks to this training camp, do you think that this is an overreaction to last year?
That's a good question. I think, honestly, I'm there with you. I mean, in terms of just the depth, trying to find that quality depth and uncovering every stone in efforts to do so And that's the nature of training camp. We saw it last year around the forward position. You remember KZ Okpala, Chima Moneke. You can even throw Chimezi Metu in that group. There were some guys who had certainly some question marks around them. And, someone like Chima Moneke, who makes the team, earns the spot, makes the team, does spend some time with the G League to try to grow in areas. And obviously he wasn't part of the rotational minutes. And then you kind of, make that comparison to what's going on this year at the center position. And even somebody like, I'd even say even with the power forward position, because you have guys like Trey Lyles and in this case, someone like Skal Labissiere who can come in and even stretch the floor a little bit in theory and kind of act as a rim protector. And if all goes right, and try to push some guys like Nerlens Noel, who you don't know exactly, what he is on paper, but in execution, it's a lot different than what we've seen in his NBA career. And there's a lot of promise there that just didn't really come to fruition. So, play it out. You've got Nimi, who's young, and you have familiarity and continuity with the roster. But is he an NBA player? Do we get to see him with NBA minutes? And if he is, I'm using him as kind of the pillar here. If you have all this, hope in him, then him beating out the likes of Nerlens Noel or even Skal Labissiere, well, he should, and he should be able to do that. And that's his trajectory, especially coming from the G League and some of the things he's been able to do and the accolades he's received over the past year. This would be the next step in that. It's like, if you're going to be an NBA player, you should be able to beat these guys out with no problem. A guy in Skal who hasn't played on an NBA roster in 3 years, and a guy like Nerlens Noel who can't really get on the floor very often. So if he can't beat those guys out, then he shouldn't be an NBA player, and he probably shouldn't get the opportunity that is afforded to him at this point. So it's really, they all have interesting stories, and they all have, hey, it's going to be a competition. Go out there and may the best man win. I think in somebody like Skal's situation where, if it doesn't happen, certainly there's the G League. Certainly there might be opportunities with other teams, but it's something he's done before. Can he do it again? This is his chance to see if he can crack our NBA rotation and make the most of the opportunity.
Sean, when we're talking with Sean Cunningham, Fox 40 Sports, has covered the Kings for years and years and years. And when you look at this team in their offseason moves, what would you say before the season gets started that you think they might be missing?
I think it's hard for me because I do think they have a nice roster right now. I think for me, it's just the one thing that I've harped on for years is wanting a more of a star from a 3-point from a small forward standpoint. Mm-hmm. Maybe that 3-and-D, maybe that next pillar for them. And shoot, maybe they have that on their roster already. Maybe they have that in a guy like Keegan Murray who can ascend to that position and build upon the rookie season that he had. That would require a lot of things going the right way for him in his development. And certainly I don't think it's going to happen maybe this year. I've kind of made the argument that, Keegan Murray had such a fantastic rookie year that, in my opinion, there are strides to make for sure. But if he could duplicate what he did in his rookie season, I think that bodes well for the Kings. It doesn't necessarily have to happen this year. Maybe it happens in another year, maybe in the 24-25 season. But maybe that player can be Sasha Vezenkov, who comes in and steps into that role and adapts to the NBA game very well as the EuroLeague MVP. I don't know that I would bet on any one of those two things happening this season. So from my standpoint, like the last 2 years, 3 years, I've always been a guy who looks at their team and said, boy, they could really use this bona fide starting three who is maybe not quite an all-star, but plays at an all-star level, a big scorer, a big defender. And to me, that would, bode well for success with Domantas Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox. So I still feel like that player is required for this team. And certainly I think they wake up every day trying to make a play like that or identify someone that they can add, even at a mid-season trade. And I think in this offseason, they kicked the tires on several people. I mean, obviously, there was the interest in Kyle Kuzma, OG Anunoby, who we'll see what happens with him. Pascal Siakam, we'll see what happens with him. These are guys that could likely fit that type of role with the Kings. But with them at least identifying those types of players, kind of plays well into my theory that they need one of those guys. And I think that's something that they could still look at later this season. But if I had to identify, that's the one.
All right, Sean, thank you. We got about 30 seconds. Just one quick follow-up. Harry Giles, you had a chance to do a story on him earlier, and some Kings fans asked, well, why not Harry Giles? Have you heard anything on his camp on what might happen with him?
Yeah, I mean, ironically, Skal, who just signed with Daniel Hazan from his agent, they both share the same agent. So Harry has had a number of workouts, most recently actually with the Warriors in the Bay Area. So I think there's a number of teams that are interested in Harry Giles in terms of what he can do on a basketball floor. I think a lot of people that want to see him. I'm confident he'll get a training camp invite, maybe a little bit beyond that. But I think the next step for Harry Giles is to play a lot of basketball, and I think that's going to come in the way of the G League, and certainly they would want to see as an NBA opportunity first and foremost. But I think we'll see him on the basketball court this year, and I think it might be in the way of the G League.
All right. Well, we root for him. Certainly, Sean, thank you for your time. I know we'll be seeing you very soon, and we appreciate you joining us.
You got it, guys. Anytime. Talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you. Sean. That's the man, the myth, the legend, as described by Christopher Laud.
So
Sean
quick
Cunningham.
to adjust as well. He was
Yes.
ready. He went straight from the stream to the phone in less than a minute. So,
Yeah, he was ready.
That's efficiency, right?
He was ready.
Gotta
Well,
appreciate it.
we got to kind of follow up on that, Chris. Let's get more into Skal, where
Yeah.
his spot may be in this organization. We've got that when we come back here on Whitey and Watkins on Sactown Sports and